You won't believe what happened in the Senate today. Elizabeth Warren tried to mock Senator John Kennedy's education right to his face. But what he said next, it wasn't just a comeback. It was a masterclass in dignity, wit, and pure Southern brilliance. The room went silent. The internet exploded. And you're about to see why. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. It was supposed to be just another Senate hearing. A room full of lawmakers, experts, and cameras capturing every second. The topic on the table, public education reform. Everyone expected tough questions and heated opinions, but no one saw this coming. As the hearing rolled on, Senator Elizabeth Warren took the floor. Known for her aggressive style and fiery speeches, she launched into a sharp critique of the Republican stance on education. Her tone was fierce and her words cut deep. But what happened next took things from political to personal. With a smirk and a sarcastic chuckle, Warren said, "Frankly, it's hard to take advice on education from someone who probably got their diploma out of a cereal box." The room went still. Was she talking about Senator John Kennedy? Yes, directly by name. Laughter broke out from a few of her supporters, but many in the chamber looked stunned. Some shook their heads. Others looked around nervously, waiting to see what would happen next. Even for the rough-and-tumble world of politics, this felt like a low blow. Senator John Kennedy, often underestimated because of his Southern drawl and homespun wit, sat quietly for a moment. No sign of anger, no flustered expression, just a calm, measured pause. The camera zoomed in. The tension was real. You could almost hear people whispering, "Is he going to respond?" And then he leaned into his microphone, took a breath, and delivered one of the most unforgettable comebacks the Senate floor has seen in years. What followed wasn't just a response. It was a moment of total composure, clarity, and confidence. The kind of moment that makes headlines, wins respect, and leaves an audience in complete silence. Stay tuned because what he said next shook the entire room and lit up the internet. Before we get to Senator Kennedy's epic response, you need to understand the man behind the microphone. Because John Kennedy is not what most people expect. With his slow Southern drawl, folksy sayings, and calm delivery, many have made the mistake of underestimating him. He sounds like someone you'd have coffee with on a front porch in Louisiana, not like someone who could intellectually spar with the best minds in Washington. But here's the truth. John Kennedy is one of the most educated members of the U.S. Senate. Born in Centerville, Mississippi, and raised in Zachary, Louisiana, Kennedy's roots are deeply Southern, but his academic background reads like a resume from the Ivy League elite. He graduated with honors from Vanderbilt University, earned a Juris Doctor from the University of Virginia Law School, and went on to study at Oxford University in England, one of the most prestigious institutions in the world. At Oxford, he studied under Sir Rupert Cross, one of the most renowned legal scholars of his time. That's not the kind of education you pick up from a cereal box. But here's what makes Kennedy unique. Despite his elite education, he never lost touch with the everyday language and values of the people he represents. He communicates in plain speech, not to hide his intelligence, but to connect. His sayings often go viral, like, "If you support defunding the police, you've tested positive for stupid." Or, "You can't fix stupid, but you can vote it out." That's why Warren's jab didn't just miss the mark. It gave Kennedy the perfect chance to remind everyone that intelligence isn't how you sound, it's what you stand for. And when he finally responded, it wasn't just smart, it was surgical. After Elizabeth Warren's mocking comment about his education, all eyes were on Senator John Kennedy. The room was tense. Would he fire back with anger? Would he let it slide? Instead, Kennedy leaned forward slowly, calmly adjusted his microphone, and with that signature Southern composure delivered a response that silenced the room, and later the internet. He began in a steady voice. "Ma'am, I may talk like I'm from the country, but I went to Oxford not just to visit, but to study." A pause. "My degrees weren't handed out with my morning cornflakes. I earned them, just like I earned the respect of the people I serve. If you're done trying to win arguments with cheap shots, maybe we can get back to talking about the real issue, giving every American child a shot at a good education." The air shifted instantly. There was no shouting, no insults, just truth calm, sharp, and delivered with a quiet confidence that hit harder than any raised voice could. Some senators tried to hide their reactions. Others nodded slowly, clearly impressed. Even a few of Warren's usual allies avoided eye contact. The power of the moment wasn't in its volume. It was in its clarity. But Kennedy wasn't done yet. He looked around the chamber and added, Smart doesn't always sound fancy. And where you're from or how you talk shouldn't be used to measure your worth. Intelligence is earned, not performed. And character is shown, not staged. Boom. The mic might as well have hit the floor. In just under a minute, Kennedy dismantled the insult, defended his name, and redirected the focus, not back to himself, but to the American people. And just like that, he turned a personal attack into a masterclass in leadership. It didn't take long for the clip to hit the internet. Within minutes, the exchange between Elizabeth Warren and Senator John Kennedy was circulating across social media. But it wasn't Warren's jab that people were talking about. It was Kennedy's calm, brutal, and brilliant comeback that had everyone buzzing. Twitter lit up like wildfire. Hashtags like #KennedyClapback, #OxfordMoment, and #SenateShowdown started trending. Political commentators, influencers, and everyday Americans weighed in. That was the cleanest takedown I've ever seen. Warren came with a punch, but Kennedy brought a nuke. He didn't yell. He didn't insult. He just obliterated her with facts and class. Never judge a Southern accent. Kennedy just gave a TED Talk on how to respond with dignity. Conservative circles praised Kennedy for defending not just himself, but everyone who's ever been underestimated based on how they talk or where they're from. Even some moderate and liberal commentators admitted Warren may have gone too far and underestimated her opponent. YouTube channels quickly picked up the footage, adding dramatic music, freeze frames, and captions like, "Watch this before you underestimate John Kennedy." Reaction videos poured in with titles like "Kennedy ends Warren's career in 60 seconds, and this is how you handle an insult like a boss." In an age where viral moments are usually fueled by chaos, this one stood out for its composure. Kennedy didn't need to raise his voice. He raised the standard. The internet couldn't get enough of it. And while Warren's jab faded into the background, Kennedy's response was immortalized in memes, mashups, and millions of views. It was more than a political win. It was a cultural moment. What happened that day in the Senate chamber wasn't just another viral moment. It was a powerful reminder that true intelligence doesn't need to shout. In a world where political debates often devolve into yelling matches and personal attacks, John Kennedy's response stood out like a lighthouse in the fog. He didn't stoop to name-calling. He didn't try to own Elizabeth Warren with aggression. Instead, he used poise, facts, and confidence to turn a cheap insult into a national teaching moment. And that's why it mattered. Kennedy's message cut deeper than any personal comeback. He spoke for millions of Americans who've been judged unfairly because of their accent, their background, or their choice of words. His response wasn't just a defense of his education. It was a defense of everyday people. Smart doesn't always sound fancy, he said. And in that one sentence, he flipped the script on every stereotype thrown at working-class Americans, Southern communities, and anyone who's ever been told they don't sound smart enough. This moment wasn't just about two senators clashing. It was about character winning over condescension. It was about remembering that true leadership isn't about belittling your opponent. It's about uplifting the conversation. And in less than 60 seconds, Kennedy did exactly that. For viewers watching at home, it wasn't just entertaining, it was refreshing. It showed that class, confidence, and conviction still have a place in politics. If this moment inspired you, smash that like button, subscribe for more powerful political stories, and let us know in the comments. Have you ever been underestimated because of how you speak? Let's keep the conversation going. Because smart doesn't shout, it speaks with purpose.